What's up, everybody? I'm Billy Ryan, and you are listening to the No One Is Watching podcast, where we explore leadership, culture, and the impact they have on high-performing teams. We can all admire the championships that are won on the field and the big profits that show up on the balance sheet. But this show is dedicated to the premise that those battles are won long before they start. Through conversations with elite performers and leaders in the world of business, sports, and life in general, we'll learn valuable lessons on how you can optimize yourself and your organization. Today we're joined by Olympic gold medalist and the second fastest woman of all time, Dalilah Muhammad. As the most decorated 400-meter hurdler in American history, Dalilah also owns a silver and a bronze medal to go along with that 2016 gold. Her resume also includes a 2019 World Championship, an NCAA championship while at USC, and a World Youth Championship. A decade after making her pro debut, Dalilah and I talk longevity, success, and the lessons she's learned over her remarkable career in track and field. All right, Dalilah, well, thanks for taking the time this morning. I know it's an off day for you, which is few and far between these days as you get ready for your first race. So I appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, of course. I'm happy to be here.
So like I said, off day, few and far between, obviously heavy training regimen. I imagine pretty strict diet regimen, but off day, cheat day. What are you doing? What's your go-to?
Oh man,
I'm just gonna let it eat for a little bit.
What is my off day cheat day? Honestly, I've been like a huge fan of like Cinnabons in the past. So that was like always my answer for that. I'm like, yeah, I'm definitely going to the mall, get a Cinnabon. But actually in Texas, for whatever odd reason, they like don't exist.
Really?
They do, but they don't. Like it's like
hard to find.
It's 30 minutes away from me. My sister called me one day. She's like, "Where are you going?" I'm like, just like driving in the car. I'm like, "Yeah, I'm really driving 30 minutes to get a Cinnabon." And it was terrible. It was the worst Cinnabon I ever had in my life, honestly. So, anything with bread though, anything bready like a pretzel or something like that is like definitely like my go-to.
Okay. Are you a sleep in type person when you get the opportunity, or you crack a dawn, kind of get up and go?
I'm absolutely a sleep in person.
Oh, all right. Well, even more thank yous then for joining me. I know it's morning and you're an hour behind us. So
no worries.
So you said you got a sister. You have other siblings?
Yeah, so I have a sister and a brother, both older.
Sister and a brother. Okay. And you grew up in Queens, is that right?
Yep, Queens, New York. Yeah, nice. Rochdale Village.
Okay. Yeah. I spent a couple years in New York a while back, and I read somewhere that you got discovered at like age 4. Is that right?
Well, I don't know if it's that early. Maybe. Okay. I started running when I was 7 years old. But my very first coach was my mother actually babysat his children. So they were around since I was probably like 3 years old. They started coming to like my mom babysat them as like babies. So I've known this coach long before I actually started on his team. So he definitely saw me just kind of running in the neighborhood and kind of would beg my mom. And around the age of 7, she kind of finally said yes.
That's funny. So did you play other sports, or was it always like track?
It was always track and field. I used to dance too when I was much younger. Did like all like the club teams and like the club dance from like around the same age, and did that till I was about 18.
Okay. So literally just saw you running around the neighborhood and said, I got to get her in a track and field program.
He really, literally. I used to like race the kids and just like all kids do, just having fun in the streets, kind of just running around.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure you had some boys come up to you and challenge you and try to race you.
They always did,
Just a couple of them and put them in their place.
Just a couple.
My guess is it was probably a one-time race and they didn't challenge you again.
It's so funny. I remember one of my best friends, his name was Marcus. And, growing up, he was probably like a couple years older than me. Finally, he's like, you know what, let's race. And I was like 11 years old at this point, and he's probably like 13. And I beat him. And then my father was there too. He's like, Dalilah, you're not supposed to do that. You got to let them win. I'm like, heck
that's
no.
Hilarious. That's hilarious. So is that around what age did you realize like, hey, I'm pretty good at this, like this is pretty special?
In elementary school, I definitely felt like I had like a knack, or I always loved to run. My parents told me I ran across before I walked. That was literally the start of my walking journey. It was literally me running across the living room So I always loved to run. I remember distinctively though in elementary school, kind of being like the fastest kid in the school, man, well, boy or girl.
Right.
And that was like, and I was probably like in third grade, and our elementary school went up to sixth grade in New York. And I remember distinctly like, wow, I'm literally the fastest kid here. Like, how is this possible?
That's cool. That's cool. So that, I mean, that's a pretty young age, especially for, boys and girls. It's a big difference at that age, right?
It
Physically, and
is.
to be able to kind of say, yeah, I'm kind of king of the hill. That had to be like a little bit of a, it had to pique your curiosity a little bit, right? As a kid, you're like, this isn't normal.
Yeah, I think it did. It just made it that much more fun for me. Like, made it something that I really chose to do, and not something like my parents wanted me to do. Like, oh, go to track practice. It made it definitely like fun for me and something that I really wanted to do. And getting picked first for everything was nice too. How schools got
Right.
changed.
Right.
So no matter
Yeah,
what it is, they're like,
absolutely.
you're on my team. I'm like, okay.
There you go. It'll boost the confidence for an elementary school kid. So you've been at it for a while now, right? You are 10 plus years in the professional track world after going to USC, and obviously incredibly decorated and very successful, medals hanging all over the place. I imagine, coming from, I don't have a ton of knowledge about track and field. I come from a baseball background and team sports, and I've seen the sort of this mass proliferation of sports analytics over the last 10, 20 years. Has the track and field game changed in that regard since you started to now? Have you seen a difference?
In terms of just like the team aspect, you mean?
Well, I would say more like from a technology and analytics, a training methodology standpoint. Have things evolved?
Well, definitely. Things are definitely evolving every single day. I think we're in such a unique time period too, where everyone is trying to involve, from like the shoes that we wear, from the clothing to just like the little things, like the coaching standpoints. I think you've seen, well, if you're in the track world, you've seen such like huge drops in times, just like across the board, like the college kids are running so much faster than they've ever run, just like as a whole. And I remember like from being young, it was just kind of like you throw on your shoes, whatever fits, and you do what you do. So just having like my coach now too is very, very into just the technical side of it. So definitely get to pick his brain on that, and he's trying to develop every single year. And I think that's kind of where the headspace is for much of the coaches these days.
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, you see it across. I mean, you look at guys jumping out of the gym in basketball and guys throwing 100 miles an hour in baseball, and you got 300-pound linemen in football running times that used to be for wide receivers. I mean, it's all over the place. And so like track and field is the most overt example of that, right? Because it's just raw athleticism and its times and its measurements, and it's, I've always been fascinated by the fact that it just seems to keep getting better. Like, what's our end point, right? Like, at what point does this plateau, or is it just like human evolution with technology and nutrition and everything else? We're just going to keep getting better. It's kind of mind blowing when you look at the evolution over just the last, I mean, just 20 years, 10 years, pick your time period. It's not like we're going back 100 years and comparing it.
No, that's absolutely true. I think about that myself, to be honest. I wonder if this is just like, how far are we going to go before it becomes normal? And it's like right now, it's like every day we're shocked, we're in disbelief. Everyone's running crazy fast, breaking records. The 400-meter, that a record that hasn't been broken in so many years, it's just been broken almost twice recently. So in indoor season. So I'm curious too to see if when is this going to become our normal?
Right. Have you had either accomplishments that you've done yourself or witnessed from a competitor or teammate that you're just kind of stand back and you're like, wow, like I can't believe I just either did that or saw that?
Oh, well, definitely. I think my record too. The record in my event, so the 400-meter hurdles, is crazy. It's 50 point, and I think that I always thought that time was possible, but to see it done, it's, even if not by me, it's still like, wow, that really just happened, and I was in that race. And even when I myself ran my personal best of 51, I thought like that was such a crazy year for me to have run that was just like insane to me. And yeah, it's only like, we're only two people in history that have run under 52. So it's definitely something amazing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, could you have envisioned this? When you first started out, when you were in your early 20s and just starting your pro career, could you envision sort of what you've accomplished, and whether it's the victories and the medals or just the raw times that you've been able to hit?
You know what? When you're in it and when you're that type of athlete, I think I've been growing up, you always kind of want it. You always want to be at the top. And that was always like the goal for me. But it's only now looking back that you're like, how the heck did I get here? So it's like, it's still that disbelief factor. It's like, yeah, I've been wanting this. I've been working towards this, like really from the very beginning. But now looking back, sometimes I'm like, wow, that's insane to me that I actually got to that elite level, to be running crazy fast and still going after it. So it's kind of those like looking back moments that you're like, I couldn't even tell you how I got here. I did it, but I don't really know.
That's awesome. Well, it's cool that you can do that while you're still competing at such a high level, right? Like a lot of athletes don't either have the foresight or the ability to look back or allow themselves to look back because they worry it'll distract them, kind of thing. But you've been doing it so long at such a high level to be able to go back and say, it's pretty cool. I'm not sure how exactly I did it, but I'm pretty proud of myself, and it's cool that it happened. That's cool.
Yeah.
So you've been doing it for you told me the other day that your training partner's 10 years younger than you. Is that right?
Yes.
So you are the KG veteran, right? You are
Absolutely.
like, has your approach to your events changed? Obviously it evolves and you learn more tricks of the trade, but I'm curious about like the different approaches. You and your training partners, 10 years of difference, different levels of sort of accomplishment.
Yeah.
Is there just a difference in approach in how you do what you do?
There absolutely is. I think there's definitely just an eagerness when you're young, eagerness to have it all. You don't actually know the secret or the formula for success yet. Yeah, you might have been successful in college, but it's different on the pro level. And I think um, it's so different on the pro level because every single person you line up with is just as talented as you. And I think in college, you can very not easily, but you can stand out and make a name for yourself. But on the pro level, every single girl has went through that exact same experience. But so there's definitely an eagerness, I think, when you're young. Um, and I think as for me, kind of being the vet in the sport, I'm kind of just laid back, just kind of hitting the times at practice and just, doing what's asked of me. And they're always like, what can I do more? They definitely have that approach. But I like it, to be honest. I think it puts me on my toes. I like to have them see it through their world again. I think it keeps me fresh, keeps me eager. And also sometimes I love just like taking the lead. I've been kind of letting them take the lead. I've been kind of taking the lead for so long that you can get comfortable. You can get really, really comfortable. And so like I like that they push me outside of my comfort zone without even knowing it.
Yeah, I can see that for sure. It's funny that it's the work hard versus the work smart sort of mentality when you learn the tricks. But did you have that moment at any point, whether it was as an amateur or as a professional, where you were always the best and maybe didn't have to work as hard just because you were so naturally talented, and then all of a sudden you look around and you're like, wait a second, this is different. These people are better than anybody I've ever competed against. Did you have that moment where it was like, I better step it up?
I think so. I think, for me though, honestly, just with the level of talent that the 400 hurdles has seen in the last couple of years, is always kind of that step up moment. Me kind of just seeing what other people around the world was doing and wanting to like be able to compete and knowing that they're going to be right there competing with me has allowed me to kind of just always have that kind of mentality, like I can't get comfortable. Um, so yeah, it's kind of been that way kind of ever since this kind of crazy evolution of these 400 hurdles.
Yeah, I guess that's true. I guess it's different from team sports or other things where just the constant like micro measurements, right? You can't really sneak up on anybody because everybody sees every single thing you're doing, and it's getting measured down to like the smallest increment. And I guess that does keep you sharp. I hadn't thought about it in that regard. How do you? I know last year you had some injuries, and you're coming up on the first race of this season for you. So, what's your approach? Again, leaning on the experience you've had and the success you've had coming out off last year and heading into this year.
I've still dealt with some injuries this year that are related to my injuries last year. So last year, right before our US championships and even worlds, I had pulled my hamstring twice. So ever since I did that, I kind of really irritated the nerve that kind of runs down that leg. So I've been kind of still dealing with that. So for me, it's just been kind of taking it day by day, just doing exactly what I can do and using these races to just really get in shape and just keep my eye on like the big prize, which is going to be our world championship and making the US team. So that's kind of really been my focus for me. Sometimes I just try to pull inspiration from other people too. I think, one of the best races I've ever seen Allison Felix run, she got like fourth place in. And for me, that was, and I was like, I always think about that race sometimes when I'm not in like my 100% shape or like my best fitness. And I remember just how hard she pushed it. And I think sometimes when you've been that top athlete, when you've been at the top, it's so hard to kind of give it your all when you know this is not your best. So I always think about that race. And I remember that just inspired me so much watching her fight for fourth place. So, and knowing that like there was going to be more to come, she just has to get through. This is the level that she's at right now. And I just have to work back towards being number one, which she pretty much did the following year. So that's kind of where I'm at with it right now, like giving it my all, even though I'm not in my best shape.
Are you able to use the analogy of an actual, like maybe distance race? Are you able to pace yourself over the course of a calendar year? I imagine you've learned to do that better as you've gotten more experience under you.
Yeah, I think for me, that's been kind of like the mental check too, to kind of pace it. And sometimes when you're not even in your best shape too, like just as a running the 400, you have to run it differently than you normally would. Like I don't have the same foot speed that I normally have. So for me, it's been kind of like checking myself, like, do I go out as hard as I normally would go out and probably not have the finish, or do I pace it and run a more steady race, knowing and that might probably result in a faster time. So that's kind of been where I'm at, just even with my training career too, like pacing myself a little bit differently and knowing that, these first races may not be super, super fast, but we're working towards something else.
Taking the long game. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's the typical like peak age in track? Is it like most sports, mid-20s, early 20s?
I heard it was upper 20s, but I think there's so many women that completely shatter that notion. But growing up, I always heard like, oh yeah, women peak around 27, 28. I'm 33. I run my fastest at 31. Allison Felix, to name a few, has run extremely fast, post 30. Oh man, what's her name? Jamaican sprinter. I'm really bad with names, so Shelly.
So am I. Don't worry.
If you heard this, please, you're my favorite. So I'm just really bad with names. But Shelly run amazing, and of course you have those distance athletes that are running so much better post 30. So honestly, I really don't believe in it. I think with just the new technology that we have, and I think our just intelligence of the sport is really allowing us to run well into our 30s. So I think we'll see.
Yeah, that really interests me because you look at a quarterback who's aging, and you can say, all right, you can't move as well, or you can't throw the ball as far, but the instincts and the pocket awareness are there. Or the pitcher can't throw as hard, but he's got better command. There's a lot of examples of that sort of in team sports. Yours is such a physical. It's such a physical sport that it feels to me from the outside looking in that there's not that same safety net of like, I can fall back on angles or experiences or techniques. Or am I wrong? Are there little things that I'm sure there are,
yeah.
But like, how much can you lean on that? I'm not, obviously you haven't dropped off all that much physically, but when you start to, are there things that you can do in that world, in that sport to
there are
maintain that longevity?
There is, and I think it's more than what people would think, and it sometimes surprises me too. Even in training, it's like I can really know that someone is like, when someone's physically faster than you, or they just have a better turnover than you have right now, but somehow you can still kind of beat them in a rep. And I think, and I think so for me right now, I'm kind of figuring out like, why is that the case? And I think it is just having the intelligence that younger athletes just really don't have. And I think you only achieve it when you're trying to push for longevity and you're trying to figure out those little incremental things that make such a difference. And you're able to hone in on that. And you really know what it takes to be successful. And it's no longer a guessing game for you. So you know exactly where your foot needs to place. You know exactly how far you want your arms to swing. You know exactly what angle, for me, that you want to be over the hurdle. And those little things truly make a huge difference, which, I think you kind of only learn really through experience and just knowing when to pull back. I think that's also a huge thing for younger athletes. It's like they're all go, and there's no sense of sometimes you need to pull it back. Just do what's asked of you because they don't know why the coach is asking them to do something. And just having the exact knowledge of exactly why my coach is asking me to do every single thing that we're doing on the field allows me to maximize the benefit of that exercise or whatever it is. And I think that's kind of really makes a difference.
Sure. Did that longevity piece for you, was that deliberate? Did you get to a point in your career where you're like, all right, I've learned some lessons, I want to extend this career as long as I can? Or did it just kind of happen? You're like, hey, I'm still performing at a high level and I gotta maintain it as much as I can.
Just the desire never went away. I think that's just really where we're at with it. For me, I didn't have like the best college career, so I always kind of felt like I was starting a little bit behind everyone else. And so for me, out of college, I didn't have a contract, and it was kind of just that make or break kind of moment. Like, is this something I can actually do as a career, or not? And looking back, I was only 23 years old, so I had definitely had time. But at that moment in life, it felt like a make
it
or
didn't
break.
feel like that at the time.
You feel much older than you are, always. So, I think for me, it was kind of like just always having that kind of mindset, like I was behind and I wanted to like catch up. Like, this is not where I saw my career going from 18 years old and graduating college. This is not like where I wanted to be. So yeah, so with that, it was kind of like, yeah, I'm still stepping. So I didn't feel like I really had my like breakout moment until I was about like 26 years old. And that's when I won the Olympics. So from there, it was just kind of like, okay, you won. You want to keep winning. You're at the top. You're like, okay, so I'm at the top in 27 again at 27. And then it's like, okay, how long can we keep going? There are new people on the scene. It's like, okay, can we still match it? So it kind of worked out that way too, I would say.
Yeah, I imagine the come up is different from the staying there, right? You're probably trying things and failing and making mistakes and picking up little lessons along the way, and then like you said, you peak with an Olympic championship, and then it's like, okay, now I got to stay here. And those are two different things. That's in anything, right? It's
exactly.
Like getting there is one thing, staying there is a hell of a lot harder.
Is it definitely a lot harder?
So what did you? Was there anything deliberate that you did, whether it was physically or mentally, at that point, to say, okay, like I've proven to myself and the world I can do this. Is there something that stands out to you when you reach that point where you're like, okay, this is what I'm going to lean on to make sure I stay here?
Oh man, honestly, my coach, I think he is so much that person that's just like, he wants it all and it's not accepting anything else. And I think that was exactly kind of where my mindset was, so it worked so well. So it's definitely just kind of been him and me together too, but just having someone else that kind of matches that energy, it's been good, and it's been how I've been able to kind of keep going, really.
And how long has he been your coach?
He's been my coach since 2016.
Okay. Yeah, so that's always been interesting to me too, because I'm not as familiar with individual sports like that. It's a you're a one person entity, right? And so anything that you do, you obviously have a support team around you, and you have a coach, and you have people I'm sure that you lean on for various things. But at the end of the day, it's you, and you've got it tailored to what you do well and what you don't do well, and it doesn't really matter about anything else.
Yeah, and we've been fortunate. I've had really good training partners. I have like 20 training partners right now. So you do feel that kind of team sense or team camaraderie. But at the end of the day, it is really much an individual sport.
What's your read on sort of the women's sports landscape right now? I mean, there's been some pretty. I mean, some of the names you mentioned earlier, right? And we always see it in the Olympics, and the sprinters in particular seem to get a lot of attention. And what's your read on just women's sports in general right now?
We're really doing really amazing right now in the sports world. I remember even this past Olympics, um, sorry fellas, but we outnumbered them like by so many more medal count on the women's team than the men, and it might have been a little bit of an off year for men, but women just kind of been really honing in on their talents and really just kind of pushing it. So I guess I'm really just happy to kind of be part of that history.
You guys have a little bit of a friendly rivalry. You give the guys some grief after the Olympics.
A little bit.
Yeah.
They always talk about like our race in this past Olympics, like the men's 400 hurdles versus the women's 400 hurdles, and which one was actually, more exciting to watch. We definitely beat them in 19 because we broke a world record and they did not, and it was kind of like this battle between like who's going to break the record on the men and women. Is it going to be both? And it was just the women. This next time though in the Olympics, the men did definitely break the world record running 45, and Sydney and myself both ran 51. So it was always that kind of challenge, like which race was actually better. But I'll say the women.
Naturally. Do you follow any other sports?
I look at basketball every now and then, but that's and the NFL. Right. I love to go to baseball games, but I don't follow it.
Yeah, a little different pace to baseball. I'll be the first to admit.
You know what? It was so much more exciting. Like after the Olympics, I was invited to a Mets game. I actually threw the first pitch twice.
Cool.
So that was definitely a fun experience, and it definitely is more entertaining to me in person. Like going to a baseball game in person, I'm all for it.
Yeah, I'm admittedly biased, but yeah, just the experience of being there and kind of taking it in and letting it wash over you a little bit. I agree. What do you envision like post career for you, post track and field? I know you've done some modeling stuff. You've had like little things going on the side. I mean, are you starting to think about that yet, or is it just still kind of laser focused on what I'm doing?
No, I've definitely been thinking about that. I think honestly, I'm probably more than likely going to retire after these next Olympics. So Paris, and kind of see what happens from there. We do have a world championships in 2025. So possibly 2025, but that will be absolutely it. So that's only the next 2 years really. So yeah, I've definitely been thinking about it. I would like to stay like in the track and field world, but definitely not running anymore. Exactly what that's going to look like, I'm not 100% sure. I just have like ideas, but I don't 100% know what career that is.
Sure. Well, I'm sure there'll be a ton of people tugging at you asking for advice and opinions. That's cool. So I read somewhere that you a light bulb kind of went off for you with one of your training. I don't know if it was a specific session or just sort of a mentality where you kind of embrace being a true sprinter instead of just focusing on hurdles. Was that something that you kind of uncovered along the way, or was it a little bit more deliberate, saying I need to change the way I'm doing things?
I think my talent has always been, or my strength for the 400 hurdles has always been the hurdle aspect of it. Just being a real good technician over the hurdles and be able to like kind of maintain that speed while I'm hurdling. But yeah, I think after a while you just realize it's not cutting it enough. It's, if you want to call yourself the best, you're going to have to do new things. And for me, yeah, it was just kind of learning to be a better sprinter. And I think once I became much faster, it, for number one, made the 400 hurdles that much easier, but also I was able to just drop my time a lot more. So yeah, I think just kind of just being that overall kind of raw athlete, as you would put it. Not just focusing on just the prettiness of going over the hurdles, but really just being a true sprinter in between.
Yeah, it's funny. We it's easy to kind of get a little bit too close to the elephant. You focus on the mechanics and the being the tactician and all this. And it's like, at the end of the day, just even with kids, like I'll see them playing sports and they've got their gurus and their coaches when they're 8 years old and they're getting all this stuff. I'm like, man, just go be an athlete. Just go play, go run around, go swing the bat, go throw the ball, go do what you got to do. Because I feel like we can almost coach the athleticism out of people sometimes because you start getting in your own head.
And I think so. I think as a kid, I could do anything. And then you play so many sports. So it's just like, not in a league, but just running around, just being a kid. And I think as a professional athlete, I realized I'm like, wait, I can't do like half the things I used to be able to do. I'm like, is it just age or am I just so focused on running? And I think even the weight room for me, I noticed it. Like any exercise that's just like 100% specific to running, I excel at. But anytime it's like we're working on a muscle that we don't normally, it's like, I'm not that good at that one. I'm just like, you know what? I have to become a better all-around athlete again.
Does that frustrate you, or is it like, because some people that could you're an elite athlete, and all of a sudden you're like, wait a second, I'm not very good at that.
I guess it's one of those moments where it's like we're here. It is what it is, but just kind of in my mind, it's like, you know what? This is room to actually grow. I think you get to a point too where you're trying to just maximize every little thing. You're just looking for these little incremental differences that can make a huge difference. So for me, it's like, oh, you know what? There's been races I've run. I'm like, wow, I don't think there's absolutely no way I can run any faster. Like everything to me went exactly how it's supposed to go. And I'm just like, well, where can I even improve at? And so finding those little idiosyncrasies really make you feel like, you know what, there's definitely room for improvement here.
Has the opposite happened to you? Have you felt like you've run a really good race and everything felt right, and then you look up and the time just wasn't there?
All the time. All the time. I think, especially those early races, a lot of times you think you're feeling so good and you look at the time and you're like, what the heck? So all the time, especially at training, it probably happens at least once a week.
Are you able to focus on that process though? I mean, it's such a like anything, right? It's such a results driven thing, but you know your body better than anybody. You know the technique, so knowing sometimes this is no good, and then it turns out to be no good. And other times you're like, this is on the other end of the spectrum. I got a chance to do something special here, but focus that you talked about. I think it was Allison Phoenix ran a fourth place finish and didn't have her best stuff, but kind of grinded through it. Like, it's got to be a little bit difficult to do that in the moment when you're like, I don't have it. I got to keep going. And I know that, the time's going to tell what the time tells, but focusing on that process for you, how do you try to balance those two things, results versus process?
And I think that's really where I'm at right now, is just kind of really remembering that it is a process. I think there was a time in my career where things came very, very easily. Yes, I'm working hard, but it's what I'm asking for it. My body's 1000% giving. And nowadays, it's like I said, just battling with injuries. You're always like, okay, you're not exactly where you want to be because of this injury, but just kind of really honing in on that process. So I think it's honestly been really difficult. I think for me, it's just kind of having those mental checks. Like, it's okay. Like, this is what you have to go through to get to where you want. Just kind of letting myself feel how I want to feel, but also remembering that part of it. And that's just part of sport.
Some of those younger training partners you have, I imagine they lean on you a lot and ask you a lot of questions. Does it lean more physical or mental that they're inquiring about?
Honestly, their questions always surprise me. It's never to me what I would think they would want to know. So
really,
it's always, man, it's all over the board, honestly. And I'm always kind of like surprised that like they just asked me the most random thing. But
what's an example?
I'm trying to think of a good example. Just like a weird question that I was asked recently. For the most part, it's always just kind of like we're kind of working on like 14-step patterns right now in between the hurdles. And, so for the most part, they're always asking like, how do you 14-step, or like, how do you kind of do that? And some of them do it really, really well. And for shorter athletes, a little bit more difficult. And I'm on the shorter side. I'm not short. I'm 5'8", but I'm still on the shorter side for a 400 hurdler that's able to 14 step. So it's always kind of like those kind of questions, like, what are you doing a little differently than me? Like, we're the same height, like, that type of question. But yeah, I think, I get a lot of diet questions too. Like, would you do
You
this?
just tell me Cinnabons.
I always tell them you gotta balance it too, though. But yeah, you just definitely have to balance it. But yeah, so I get a lot of diet questions like, do I do this before a race? Would I do that before a race? I'm like, no, but do what you do. I think that's the best way to approach this situation. So
Yeah.
I get a wide range of questions.
Did you have a mentor when you were coming up? Another athlete that you would lean on for those kind of questions?
Well, I trained, straight out of college, I trained with Lucinda Demas, and Lucinda Demas was the American record holder at the time, of honestly phenomenal athlete. Um, so I was able to train with her for a couple years, and that kind of was like the start of my career. And looking back, I don't think you realize how much you really rely on people and how much inspiration you gain from training with people. But I really literally went to her training group because I was like, she's the best. I want to be the best. Like, let me see what the best does. And I think actually it was at the Olympic Games trials that year. So it was in 2012. And I like right before her final, I'm like pulling her aside. I'm like, "Can I train with you?" Like, and her coach, which was her mom at the time, and they're like, "Who the heck is this little girl?" Like asking, "Can I train?" Like, girl, I'm warming up for this Olympic trials final to make this Olympic team, and you're really asking me this question right now. But they were nice about it. Lucinda just kind of ignored me, did her thing, and her mom would like talk to me. And she's like, "Okay, but can we talk after?" I'm like, "Oh, sorry." But yeah, I think just training with her, like, she really taught me how to train, and just like what you need, the type of just intensity that you need to have at practice. Like, she was like the first person I think I really saw. Like, I had it in college, but not to that a level, and not to that intensity, and just not to that, like, everything she did was with purpose. So that was definitely just kind of, I don't even think I wasn't like asking her a bunch of questions, but I unknowingly just had that example and have just incorporating that so much into like what I do now.
Yeah, I mean, you touched on it earlier, just the seemingly cutting out all those inefficiencies. You see these younger athletes who come up and they're just going 100 miles an hour. And, you've learned those lessons. You've been there, done that. You're kind of sitting back and being like, all right, I'm going to go when I have to go, but
Yeah.
I'm going to sit back until then. Right.
And she was so like on pace. I remember that was like one thing like I never really thought about. And it seems such a weird thing to even say, because obviously you run track and field. If you know anything about it, you're pacing yourself. That's just like the main thing. Like, how do you do any race? It's like there's some type of level of pace, even in 100 meters. So, but Lashinda would be like, exactly. Her mom would be like, I want you to run 24.5 for this 200. Lashinda would run 24.5. And I used to think like, how isn't that even possible? Like, how can you be
That's
that
incredible.
spot
That
on?
precise with it. Yeah.
And honestly, like, not to toot my own horn, but that is like the best thing I'm good at right now. Like, if my coach asks me to do a time, like, I can hit it exactly. And I think so. And I honestly got that from her.
Well, I mean, I imagine if you can do it in sort of like on command, like in incremental bits, like that speaks volumes to sort of how in tune you are with your body and the event and like what you're trying to do and how you go about doing it. That kind of blows my mind, to be honest with you, to be able to do it that precisely.
No, and it is crazy. I think, yeah, you just I don't even know what it is, but you just become that in tune with your body, like you said. And it's just being able to hit like little things, like little times that he wants us to run. So, and it just makes a huge difference in training.
So what are you doing in your off time when you're traveling or you're not racing? How do you spend your time?
What off time? No.
Fair.
No, honestly, we get like a month off of um, racing and just completely downtime. It's really been like a month. Like, for some reason, I feel like our season has got pushed further back. So we're running like pretty much into September nowadays. And I started training in November. So I'm running from training from November. I start racing. If I don't do any indoor this year, I've kind of done a couple indoor races, but we start racing end of March all the way up until September. But when I'm not, I try to get a trip in every time, like exactly like when my last race is, the trip is booked. So that's kind of what I'm doing, just kind of doing some type of vacationing type of trip. And yeah, those rare days that I do get off, like this weekend I have off. I'm gonna go into Dallas. So I'm in Fort Worth right now. So I'm gonna drive into Dallas. We're gonna go to dinner. A couple of the girls that I train with. Just chill.
Nice. Where's the last trip you went on?
Jamaica.
Nice. How was it?
It was fun. We did a girls trip to Jamaica, like in our off season. We had a great time.
Cool. Well, look, this has been a lot of fun. I appreciate you taking the time. I know you've got one of your rare and seldom off days right now, so I appreciate you spending a little time with me on it. And I'm excited for you this year. I'm sure 2023 is a big year for you. I know you're already kind of, you've sort of planted the flag for you as like what the end will be or when it'll be, at least the final gate potentially. So I'm sure you're excited to get going too.
No, I am. I'm definitely just excited to see what these rest of these years can bring. I'm just really focused on getting healthy. I think that's been my biggest thing, just kind of getting healthy, getting back on track. But I still have my hopes. I still think it's definitely possible. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Awesome. Well, Dalilah, this has been a ton of fun. I appreciate you taking the time. Good luck in Austin, and I'll be watching for sure.
All right. Thank you. It was good talking to you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the No One Is Watching podcast. If you haven't already, be sure to hit subscribe to be notified of future episodes. If you'd like to support the show, please take a second, leave a rating and review, or share it with your friends. If you're interested in similar content, you can check out my website at nooneiswatching.com, where you can subscribe to the newsletter, read my blog, or follow me on your social media platform of choice. Look, your time is valuable, so thank you for lending me some of it. We'll see you next time.